Okay, so what we want to do today is we want to simplify square roots, okay? And this video is meant to correspond with the Khan Academy activity, Simplifying Square Roots 2. So what we want to do is we want to take 6 times the square root of 176, and we want to simplify it. So let's work to do that. So over here on the right, I'm going to write 6 square root of 176. And what we need to do is we need to break 176 up into a product of primes. Product means multiply. So we want to break it up into a bunch of prime numbers that are multiplying. So I'm just going to constantly divide this number by 2 or 3 or whatever will go into it until nothing else will go into it. So I've got 6 times the square root of, and let's go ahead and divide it by 2. So that'd be 2 times 88. Okay, and I just used my calculator and I typed 176 divided by 2, and it gave me 88. Now let's divide 88 by 2. So I have 6 square root of 2 times 2 times 44. And if you multiply 2 times 2 times 44, you'll get 176. And let's keep breaking it down. I can see that 4 goes into 44, so let's write that as 6 square root of 2 times 2 times 4 times 11. And then I can see that 4 can be broken down to be 2 times 2, so I'm going to write it as 6 square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 11. Okay, and so what I should do is I should multiply all this to see if it equals 176. So why don't you pause and take a moment to multiply all that and see if it equals 176. All right, so let's keep working. Now, square root, there's understood to be a 2 right here in our radical. Okay, so I've got a radical right here, right? And it's understood to be a 2 here. That's why I call it square root. And since there's a 2 there, I'm looking for pairs of 2, kind of like in Go Fish. So I've got a pair here of 2 like numbers, and I have a pair here of 2 like numbers. So let's rewrite this as 6 square root of, and 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4 times 11. And then what let's do is let's take the square root of 4 and the square root of 4, okay? And the reason I'm doing that is because they're perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square, and this 4 is a perfect square. So what is the square root of 4? It's 2, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, when you have a perfect square and you take the square root of it, then you take it from being underneath the radical, you're going to take it out of the radical, and you're going to multiply it by whatever's out here. So the square root of this 4 is 2, and the square root of this 4 is 2, and so on the outside I'll have 6 times 2 times 2 times the square root of 11. So notice I took this 4 and I moved it outside, but I took the only way you can get it outside is to take the square root of it. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, which is where that 2 came from, and the square root of this 4 is 2, which is where that 2 came from. So let's keep simplifying. So I'll multiply 6 times 2 times 2, and that gives me 24. And 11's not a perfect square, so I'm not going to remove it from outside the radical, so I'll have square root of 11. And so this is the completely simplified form. So let's go back to the problem, and in Khan Academy, they want me to put what goes outside the radical there and what goes inside the radical there, so I would put 24 on the outside and 11 on the inside. And that right there is the same thing as 24 times the square root of 11. And I know I simplified it all the way when what's underneath the radical I can't take the square root of and end up with a whole number result. So right here, let's look at example 2. This says simplify the following expression. 9 times the square root of 125. Okay, so I'm going to write that over here. 9 times the square root of 125. And remember, because they did not write the root here, it's understood to be a square root, okay? And so what I need to do is I need to break 125 down into a product of primes. So I've got 9, and I think, what goes into 125? Well, 5 does. So I've got 5 times 25 is the same thing as 125. And look right here. 25 is a perfect square. So why don't I take the square root of that 25, and when I take the square root of it, my result goes on the outside of the radical. So what is the square root of 25? Well, it's 5. So that's 25 from inside there's going to go away, and I'm going to move the square root of it out here and multiply it by what's out there. So on the outside, I have 45 times the square root of, and what's left inside is 5. And you can see now what's left under the radical, I can't take the square root of and end up with a perfect square, so I'm done. So right here I'll put 45 on the outside and 5 on the inside of the radical. So let's look at our third example. On this one I've got 10 times the square root of 35, so I'm going to rewrite it. 10 times the square root of 35. And remember, your first step is to rewrite 35 into a product of primes. So I'm going to write 10 times the square root of, and 35 is the same thing as 7 times 5. Now you can see there's no more, I can't break 7 down because it's prime, and I can't break 5 down because it's prime, and 7 and 5, neither one are perfect squares. So there's really nothing I can take out of the radical. So my question is also my answer. 10 times the square root of 35, that's the answer. There's no more simplification that can take place. 10 times the square root of 35 is as simple as it gets. So like I said, the question is also the answer. All right, and then I wanted to show you this cartoon because I thought it was kind of funny. So that I know you watched the video with the volume turned on. I want you just to write on your paper the word F-O-R-E. Write the word for, not the number 4. It's F-O-R-E. And when people play golf, if they hit a ball at somebody, they yell 4, and that tells the people that they hit it at to duck. And what's funny about this cartoon is you've got this kid right here about to hit the ball, and he does hit it at his dad, and he hits his dad in the head, but instead of yelling 4, the kid yells square root of 16, and the dad says, just yell 4, son. And so it's just a funny joke. Remember to write on your paper the word F-O-R-E so I know that you read the notes. I mean that you listened to the video.